stop before you watch this video or after. Like it, comment on it, and subscribe to New Era's channel. And if you feel like letting us know what issues are getting you down right now, follow that link in the description and fill out our online comment card. Woo! Check this out. I'm going to be honest, this microphone is not plugged into anything, but I feel like it makes me look cool and like I have some actual credibility to talk with, so I'm going to use it. Also, it gives me something to do with my hands. I was doing way too much the first couple takes of this. But, officially, welcome to the New Era YouTube channel. I have gotten such an incredible amount of support from volunteers, from New Era staff, from my friends for doing this channel, and I'm really glad that I get the creative freedom to kind of run it how I want. I think it's going to be a good time. I want to officially welcome you, and say that I'm happy that you're here watching this video, regardless of whether or not it's 10 of you or 100 of you or one person watching this video. I am glad that we get to do this. So we're going to brush over some more background topics that we don't necessarily talk about in the field or when we're doing volunteer meetings or chapter meetings, and just cover some bigger topics that young people are struggling with, and we're going to find some solutions together. We're going to talk about the problems together. We're going to play some video games. At some point, we're going to talk to some guests, whoever is willing and daring enough to come and do this with me. Because I'll be honest, I don't know what I'm doing, and we're going to figure it out together, but it's going to be a good time. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. We're going to slow down. We're going to take some time to just chat. I guess New Era exists primarily for one reason, and that kind of drives all the rest of our other work. We work to advocate for issues that young people care about. So yes, that sounds broad, and it definitely is, which is why we're going to kind of use this channel to hone in on some of the more background issues that we might not discuss as much at tables or with our base or with volunteers. I am not a very serious person, and I have gotten express permission to cover topics on this channel in a not so serious way. So as I get a little bit more comfortable with it, as you continue to watch these videos, we're going to kind of, we're going to make it fun, I think. I personally think I'm hilarious, so I hope you agree. But let me introduce myself first. My name's Carl. I run our Boulder program as the regional lead organizer over here. And I am also now in charge of our YouTube channel, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of me. But I figured with the tone and the subject of what we're going to be doing, it might be helpful to share a little bit about me and why I'm choosing to potentially make an absolute fool of myself on a public platform. And I think first and probably most important, I am by no means a lifelong progressive or an advocate. I am pretty new to this flavor of work that organizations like New Era does. I'm very new to the organizing community, and I'm very new to the progressive space. We're talking 4 or 5 years of dipping my toes in the water of political progressives. I am also not engaging with this YouTube endeavor in an effort or interest to lecture you, scold you, or really even drastically change your mind about some hyper-political issue. I am here instead to share some insight and some light on why and how the way that I've learned to engage with other people, with politics, and with issues has led to kind of a happier and more stable life for myself. And I hope that it can help you too. The people that I share my time with, the way in which we talk together, and the communities that we build have just led to a violent amount of personal growth for me. And also a dramatic increase in the support and love that I get to receive and also give. It's been a beautiful change. So let's talk a little bit about the zine that New Era released earlier this year, because that's kind of what I built these next couple videos on top of. The theme was community, and I just mentioned community, so this is kind of a not so subtle way to segue us into this first video topic. And I do want to warn you, also, just because I was interested in getting paid to play video games, we are going to be doing this while I play Minecraft, so you'll see me in the little bottom corner of your screen, or maybe the top corner, I haven't decided yet. and I'm going to play some Minecraft, because what other better way to talk about community than building a space for one? I'm hoping to have some guests on to play Minecraft with me. We can build fun houses. We can exploit villagers, but in an ethical way, because we support labor rights at New Era. So ethical trading only. Like I said, earlier this year we worked on publishing a zine focused around a couple simple questions. We asked who your community is, how do you care for your community, how your community cares for you, and what kind of vision you have for your community. And we got some absolutely exceptional responses. If you see me at a table or see any of our organizers at a table in any region, we will have zines on us. They are free. Take one, read it. I got an article in there about Dungeons and Dragons. It's pretty rad. I have figured out a way to put Dungeons and Dragons into almost every corner of my work. So take some time and appreciate the beautiful piece I wrote. But, however, I saw a couple glaring gaps in the questions that we asked, and I wanted to cover those here. Firstly, the prompts did not address the increasingly large groups of people, especially young men like myself, who haven't had great examples to follow in joining or building community. Celebrating your community is a phenomenal time. It's fun, it's flirty, but in order to celebrate your community, you gotta learn how to build one, or at least learn how to join a community. Or even, honestly, at the most basic level, be able to identify a helpful community. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to begin with a very simple statistic from a study that Cigna did that quoted 80% of young people in the U.S. feeling a deep-seated sense of loneliness. On one hand, holy fuck, 80% is a lot of young people. But on the other hand, we have 80% of this demographic feeling a type of way that can be remedied by the very same demographic. We can help each other out of this mass loneliness epidemic. Now, it wouldn't be controversial for me to claim that humans are social creatures. Read really any anthropologist. Maybe avoid Jared Diamond. That guy's got some whack views. We can argue about it in the comments if you feel like it. But the ultimate spark that lights this fire of progress has and will always be the communities that we form and the problems that we overcome through strong bonds with each other. All that to be said, I've been a little bit vague so far. So I'm going to give a little outline of the goal of this conversation. We've covered a topic, we have a reason for talking about this topic, and the next step is to figure out what a healthy community looks like, what benefits we get from it, and why some quote-unquote communities mimic these effects while actually creating further isolations. We're going to refer to those communities as false communities, just for simplicity's sake, so we don't get mixed up. So let's talk about the structure of a healthy community and the helpful outcomes that come from it. The first and most obvious is that building community negates stress and feelings of isolation. Stress and anger breed isolation. Isolation breeds more stress, and in turn breeds more anger and frustration, and it leads to this just brutal feedback loop of loneliness. And that's not what we really want. This loop, though, can be effectively broken. I have done it. Many people have done it, and that's what we're talking about today, is how to break this loop. But it can be effectively broken through community because of this mindset that healthy communities have of growth and reciprocity. So doing things for each other out of an interest of supporting your community rather than having an interest of having some self-gain from it. There is, of course, no actions that you can take that are void of self-interest. That I wholeheartedly believe. But intention matters here. So doing things with the intention of boosting up your community rather than for the intention of self-gain is a big pillar here. And that's a tough one to break. That's one that took me years to figure out. And something that I hope I can help y'all with as well. Communities build you up as an individual. That much is true. And if a community is made up of individuals and they are all taking turns building each other up through the support of other people in that community, then the community itself has growth because all of the individuals within it are fostering growth within each other. Now, I want you to bear with me on this next perk of community because I know that for some, the narrative against this idea has been pretty strong in recent years. But I want to talk about diversity of thought and inclusion of varied demographics being essential to a healthy community. So we've got kind of like four things that a healthy community helps fix. The first is groupthink. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth when I talk about online communities. I'm not going to demonize them. We're just going to chat about them. But groupthink is really real in these community spaces. When you enter a false community, it is usually a very homogenous group. And especially with online communities, when you join them, it is usually centered around one issue or one topic or one mindset. I'm thinking of like the red pilled community. All kind of gathers around these single issues of like, hey, this isn't the struggles that we go through as men is not our fault. And then they point the finger at some other group of people instead of trying to grow and overcome it. Diversity of thought helps a lot with groupthink. When you have a variety of different people with just incredibly different and varied backgrounds, it helps you to poke holes in ideas that otherwise you might have just gone with off the bat. This occurs in business and in social circles, in political circles. Really, the groupthink issue across the board is a problem that humans have been struggling with for forever. It's the main reason we have something called the coordination problem, coordination paradox. Basically, this struggle to coordinate with each other because sometimes we lack this diversity of thought. Real communities also help with empathy building. And that's a tough one. It's this intangible thing that exists only in your brain, but that you can kind of feed and nurture and grow. And a lot of that growth comes from exposing yourself to people from different walks of life. When you have a community that is made up of a lot of different people, like I said, with different backgrounds, you're able to get a lot more. You're able to get a lot more exposure to other people's life contexts that you may not have considered in the way that you make decisions, in the way that you speak, in the way that you act and think. So that becomes really helpful as well. It just makes you a more rounded person. With the increase in empathy and also the understanding of other people's circumstances, the context that they're coming from, comes this growth of intelligence. You are becoming, like I said, a more well-rounded person because you're exposing yourself to all sorts of different ideas and life pathways, whatever you want to call it. And the last one is probably my personal favorite part of a healthy community is bridge building. Take New Era, for example. As a community that I started in as a volunteer and that now I work for, the amount of people that I've been able to meet through this community and the connections that I've been able to make, the friends that I've been able to make, and the mentors that I've been able to find have all been a product of the healthy community that New Era builds around its staff especially, and then also what I hope that the regional lead organizers are doing in their regions. Like, we hope that you feel like we're building a community in your region through the chapters where you feel comfortable sharing your mind, where you feel comfortable seeking help and asking for connections. The bridge building part is such a great perk of community building. In contrast, this is where we're going to talk about the false communities. There are a plethora of examples of online communities or other like types of false communities that take what I think of as New Era's approach to voter registration. The whole methodology behind how New Era goes about voter registration with young people is that we want to do all the heavy lifting for you. We want to show up where young people are. We want to bring everything to you so that it's as easy as possible. And I think a lot of that happens with online communities. Like I said, there are healthy online communities, but we're talking about unhealthy online communities right now. There are a lot of these like false communities that appear to you via the algorithms that are pretty hard to avoid. We all know the right-wing pipeline online is pretty dangerous. The manosphere pipeline is swift and pretty unforgiving. And these communities, because they center around usually one idea or one way of thinking, that generally tends to point the finger at another demographic of people for you to blame your problems on, and can create further isolation because you're not giving yourself more opportunity to have those social interactions. And there is this intangible thing that comes with face-to-face interactions that you just don't get online. So it becomes dangerous when the only community that you are seeking out is these hyper-focused online spaces that just become these kind of echo chambers of blame. online communities, like I said, can be tough. It's not to say that they don't exist. I myself am in an online community with a family from Indiana. I lived with one of them a couple of years ago, and now I probably spend 3 to 4 nights a week playing Dungeons and Dragons, chatting, playing video games, doing whatever you do on Discord. We cover it, and that's a community that I get a lot of benefit from. All of those pillars of avoiding groupthink, building empathy, building intelligence, and building bridges between different people. All of those are things that I experience in my online community. So I have firsthand knowledge that these can work. But that is not my sole community. That is not where I put all of my focus. It is simply one that I was lucky enough to stumble into and be invited to join. And it's caused a lot of benefit in my life. However, when isolation is already an issue, missing out on that intangible face-to-face value that you get through social interaction is usually to your own detriment. I do want to be specific about the main echo chamber issue of online communities, because it's often that you find a community built around one idea, like I've said. Our generation cares deeply about agreeability, which is understandable. A lot of us try to make as few waves as possible, out of a sense of, or out of a desire not to inconvenience others. Or we're under this illusion that agreeability is equivalent to likability, which is one of the main things that leads to these big echo chambers online. We kind of skip over the arguments just because we have a potential of maybe hurting the other person's feelings, but that we can go into respectful discourse when we disagree at another time. Like I said, agreeability is not likability. And a lot of times, because these online communities are echo chambers, there is kind of an intangible pressure that you feel to agree with whatever the loudest voices in these fake communities are saying. I feel like that's a perfect example of groupthink. These echo chambers do create groupthink. They also, it's hard to build empathy in an online community or any of these false communities, even if they are in person, because of the echo chamber. There isn't a huge variety of ideas or different contrast. Intelligence growing also kind of stagnates in these false communities just because you are kind of recycling the same points over and over again. It kind of goes hand in hand with that agreeability situation that we experience as young people. Especially when there's an older voice speaking, there is an expectation that we've been taught by our parents that the older voice is more relevant or should be more prominent than our own, even if we also have equal things to contribute. Now, in false communities, anger, like I said, is often the foundation of why you're there. That is not to say that anger can't be part of a broader community or an in-person community. Many communities grow out of anger, frustration at stagnation over wages, or stagnation over progress along racial lines or progress along class lines. So that anger is okay to exist in communities. It is okay to find a group of people who are angry at being let down or being betrayed. The problem with anger only comes when the community that you're a part of is founded upon the anger that you feel. When you join a community so that you can be like, all of these things are going wrong, I need someone or some group of people to point my finger at. An example of this would be the manosphere. Any of these red pill content creators. Instead of acknowledging that men also suffer, especially young men, suffer underneath the weight of the patriarchy, for them it is a lot easier to get into a community where you're able to point the finger at someone, particularly women, for the source of all your troubles. We see people do this with women, with immigrants, with people of color. There is not really a marginalized group that's safe from having people point the finger at them and be like, hey, you're the reason I have all of these problems. When you transform isolation into anger and then build on that, it just can't possibly be lasting. Anger isn't an emotion that lasts. It is exhausting to be angry all the time. It wears you down. And so when you join these communities out of a sense of anger, they don't give you any of those benefits that we talked about. It wears you down. It creates a community in which, like, you're speaking into an echo chamber, you're being angry, you're pointing the finger, but nothing is being done to help you process that anger or get to any kind of reasonable conclusion about the way that you're feeling. with all that being said, let's do a quick repeat back of what we just talked about. We talked about New Era, obviously, as this is our first video. I spoke to the zine prompts that we covered earlier this year that focused around community. We outlined, really the 4 greatest benefits of community. Being able to avoid groupthink, being able to build empathy, being able to grow intelligence, and being able to build connections and bridges. We also covered false communities. These false communities that are built out of a place of anger and isolation, which is a rational reason to want to go and find a community. But we also talked about how tricky these communities are to avoid and how easily you can end up in one of these groups that just results in an echo chamber that gives you the false illusion of having a community but doesn't actually provide you any of the benefits that a real community does. I think it would be helpful as well just to get a little personal here and describe some of my journey to finding healthy community, because I certainly fell into the trap of listening to people like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, who are very adamant on pointing the finger at other groups of people for your own suffering while completely ignoring the systemic conditions that we put ourselves under. Things like the patriarchy, when we are taught as young men, or I guess not taught as young men, how to adequately process emotions, how to take care of ourselves, how to handle the expectations that come with being a young man in the 21st century. Once we are dumped out into the world at 18, a lot of us feel lost, a lot of us feel isolated, and we don't necessarily have the tools to break out of that isolation, which is where these false communities come into play. They bring everything to us. They do all the heavy lifting. All we have to do is join the community and start pointing the finger at somebody. That was pretty unavoidable for me. When I got to college, I was angry. I sought out community of people who looked like me, people who talked like me, people who acted like me, and people who had very, very, very similar backgrounds to me. And the problem is I didn't grow. I didn't feel better about myself after being a part of those communities. I don't want to name them, but there were no benefits that came from it. I left that community in my freshman year of college feeling just as angry and frustrated and abandoned by the world. And it wasn't until finding a community that hit all of those check boxes of diversity of thought, empathy building, opportunities to grow intelligence and develop yourself as a person, and building bridges. It wasn't until I found a community like that I really started to see a serious amount of personal growth. And through that, I was able to get the support that I needed to handle mental health issues and addiction issues and confidence issues. My self-esteem is at an all-time high, which may be dangerous because, I like to say that I run on an abundance of overconfidence and a healthy dose of self-hatred. All that to say, we're going to continue this conversation about community. We are going to go a little bit more in depth on some of the pillars of a healthy community, and we're also going to talk a little bit on how to analyze the community that you are in or that you're interested in joining, to avoid joining one of these false communities that really just suck the life and energy out of you rather than building you up as a person. I would also like to thank you all for tuning in. I'm pretty excited about this project, and I'm excited to keep chatting. Send this to your friends. Bully me in the comments. I don't know. Do whatever you feel like. And I'll catch you next month. Toodles.